Hey guys, Shakarez or Killbot here, and today I'm bringing something new to the channel and something I want to do more often in the future if possible. Today we'll be looking at one of Saintvicious' games, and this new series is called Shakarez Spectates. I'll be looking at different high elo players and or streamers and basically analyze one of their games, whether it is for their unique champion pool or this champion they play or a different build path, or simply because it's a rising pick in the meta. It will really depend, but you guys can always leave suggestions in the comment section and I'll try to follow to the best of my ability. Now, today we'll be looking at Saintvicious' Zac. While it's not a champion he's necessarily known for, his recent build path deviation was something that caught my attention. Now, I could have gone for Meteos' games. He's much more known for his Zac. However, first, he doesn't really play solo queue nowadays, or at least he does, maybe on a hidden smurf. And secondly, he doesn't really play that much Zac, and he doesn't play with the build I want to showcase. Now, let's go for a quick overview of Saint's build. Saint focuses on a very CDR-oriented build that gets 10% CDR on his setup via runes and masteries. And then his core items are Ionian Boots of Lucidity alongside the Juggernaut Jungle Enchantment. Now, this gives him 35% CDR very early into the game, and since Zac is a resourceless champion, his CDR directly affects and improves his DPS and mobility, and it ends up indirectly buffing his sustain because of his passive, so the more spells you put out, the more blobs you'll put out, and the more sustain you'll have in jungle clearing and team fights. So with 35% CDR, just to have a perspective of how effective it is on Zac, I have some numbers here. His Q, his Stretching Strike rank 1 goes down from 9 seconds to below 6. Q rank 5 goes down from 7 to 4.55. His W, which is his main tool to clear the jungle, Unstable Matter, is really the only spell that doesn't go down with CDR too much because it's already on a low cooldown. So it's the one that doesn't really gain anything from high levels of CDR. So, but it goes down from 5 to 3.25 seconds, which is still quite important. And then the most important one is probably his Elastic Slingshot, because it goes down from 12 seconds to 7.8 at rank 5. And that's the skill he's been maxing first, and that's the skill that a lot of players playing Zac have been maxing first in the new jungle. And that has to do somewhat with the new buffs as well. Now, his ultimate obviously is a very high impact tool in the jungle when he uses it in team fights. And it goes down at rank 2 from 115 to 75 seconds, and at rank 3 from 100 to 65. So as you can see, CDR really affects Zac's build and really allows him to do what he does even better. Now here is just Saintvicious clearing. He's looking for the gank top lane, but he did see Lee Sin, so he warded and backed off, went to get the Krugs, and now he's going to look for a gank top lane. And right now he already has 2 points on his Elastic Slingshot. A reminder that when you level up Elastic Slingshot, you get more range on it, so it's plus 100 range per rank. And right here, gank on the Cassiopeia, not a very mobile champion. She has to flash, he flashes immediately after, and the red buff and the auto attack end up doing the job and grant him the first blood. So he's going to back, and he already has money for Ionian Boots of Lucidity. Now, not only does this give him a lot of mobility, it's also going to give him the cooldowns he wants and needs. And right now he's already at 25%, which is a very high value to be at below 5 minutes. And even though he isn't really maxing his skills yet, he's still level 4, it's still going to affect his performance in the jungle and when ganking. So basically, with patch 4.20 hitting the patch before this one, we're on 4.21 right now, the immediate reaction was to turn to sustain-based junglers to be able to go through the jungle. Zac was considered as an option, but the more prominent sustain junglers like Warwick, Fiddlesticks, Pantheon took over as they basically benefited more from the changes than Zac. Now, on patch 4.21, Zack did get a buff. His Elastic Slingshot got buffed in damage, and it's now the same as it was back in Season 3. I think it was patch 3.10 that it was nerfed, and now it was rebuffed back to the values before patch 3.10. He also now generates more blobs when his Elastic Slingshot hits multiple champions, and his ult knockback range is now increased from 250 to 400. Now, while the ult's knockback range isn't that... It isn't really a big buff, it isn't a huge buff, it's noticeable because the champions he hits are going to be knocked back further, but the duration of the CC is basically the same. You'll just be displaced more. So the other buffs that were given to Zack before these ones were the one on 4.11, where the cooldown on Unstable Matter went up by 1 second, but also goes down when you pick up blobs. So it goes down by 1 second each time you pick up a blob. So you'll notice that when Saint is clearing, he's constantly spamming his W, because he's constantly getting blobs, and whenever he catches a blob, it goes down by 1 second. He already has 25%. So he's having like Unstable Matter every 2 seconds to clear, and that makes him a very fast clearer. The other quality of life change that was given to Zack back on 4.11 was that when he uses Unstable Matter, he's able to move between the creeps. And this is also very useful because this allows him to move and catch the blobs faster, and thus spamming more Unstable Matter and sustaining better in the jungle. Now, it's not a big change, but it obviously is going to help him clear better and not get cock-blocked by the monsters when he wants to pick up the blobs. Nothing much happened this game. I decided to go for a shorter VOD because I'm not very used to doing something like this. I'm not very used to doing videos without a script, so it's very hard for me. But this was a very interesting video where Saint's team was actually very behind early game, but he did actually do very good ganks and managed to turn it around. So right here, the first ultimate, unfortunately it didn't end up doing much because Lee Sin had Safeguard and Twisted Fate stuns Saint, but Saint getting the level 6 here first and being able to put on some pressure on the Lee Sin. Now, basically the combination of the buffs from 4.11 and 4.21 and the changes to the jungle on patch 4.20 basically allowed Zack to be more viable, because you really need junglers that have some kind of sustain. They're obviously going to be stronger. These changes really allow him to be a better teamfight champion and a better jungler. He's basically an AP tank that still deals quite some damage because of his high base damage abilities, and his ratios are actually pretty decent as well. So stacking AP on him, while it's not your priority, is still going to be effective. So you'll notice that Saint is running a bit low in the jungle, and this is because he's running armor per level steals in this game. He's been testing out different setups. I checked all his games, and he's been trying armor per level, armor, and obviously both work. You'll notice that most of the time he's still above 50% HP. Obviously from level 6 onwards, armor per level actually does go neck and neck. The levels... It breaks even at level 6 with flat armor. So from 6 onwards, armor per level is going to be the better rune option. Now, obviously, this isn't an option for most of the junglers, because most of the junglers lack sustain and lack ways of actually doing anything, because they just run out of HP because they're not tanky enough. Zack can actually run armor per level and still clear the jungle, which gives you a lot of versatility to choose between armor and armor per level. Obviously, if you're versus a champion that's going to invade you, maybe armor is going to be the better option. If you know you're going to have a breeze in the jungle and not going to have many problems, you can go for armor per level, which was the case here. This doesn't mean that these are the only two options. You can always mix them up, but remember that armor per level is going to be the better option from level 6 onwards, so it's going to be more effective for a larger part of the game. For the rest of his runes, in Marks he's running attack speed right now. he did try Magic Penetration out, and it is an option, and it used to be more of an option with the old jungle, but right now how the new jungle works, you really need to auto-attack the creeps to be able to clear, and the Magic Penetration isn't going to help as much. But you can test both setups and see which one helps you the most with clears. Attack speed is going to be the faster one. Obviously, Magic Penetration is going to be better for team fights. For glyphs, he's running 6 cooldown reduction glyphs to give him 5% at level 1. And then the 3 other glyphs are pretty much your choice. I think he was running magic resistance per level, but you can also run flat. It really doesn't matter. You could even run some AP, but it's not going to affect that much because it's only 3 glyphs. You can even fill them with CDR as well. And for Quint, I think that in this game he was running... Actually, I'm wrong. He wasn't running attack speed marks this game. He was running magic penetration marks, and then 2 attack speed Quint and 1 AP Quint. Now, the other option is, obviously, if you're going magic penetration, you might need some kind of attack speed. If you're not going magic penetration and going attack speed marks, you can go for 3 AP Quints. Now, here is when the fight breaks out. Saint was waiting for his E, he didn't get it, so he just flashed in and went with his R. Unfortunately, just ulted by Lee Sin, so he couldn't really CC the enemy team. But as you can see here, he's always spamming his E and always using it constantly because his cooldowns are so low that he's able to constantly do these. Now, right here, he goes into the brush because Cassiopeia is coming back. And look at the burst. This is a level 5 Elastic Slingshot, and it completely bursts down Nami really quick. Right now, with the buff, it has a base damage of 280 damage, so that's very high damage. And right here, his passive gets popped, but Gragas to the rescue, and Jace as well, keep him alive. So a very good team fight there for Saintvicious. He gets 2 kills and an assist, I believe. I think that was it. That was pretty good. And he goes back to clearing. Now, as I mentioned about runes, the 2 options are going to be either magic penetration marks with less AP and then 2 attack speed Quints, or running the attack speed marks with the AP Quints. And the AP Quints might not seem like they're very good, but they're actually really strong because Zack's ratios are actually pretty decent. I'm sure that his E has a 0.7 ratio, so that's pretty high. And I think his Q and his W are between 0.2, 0.4, somewhere like that. So they do help your clear a lot. So you could try 3 AP Quints as well, which was what Saint tried in other games. Not necessarily in this one, because this was one of the first games he tested this Zack build out. So for Masteries, he's running a very basic 921 page. Obviously, grabbing the AP and the CDR. Again, you can really change these points around, allocate depending on the team compositions. If you're not facing magic damage, you can take those points, put them in the extra health regen. It really depends, but the 9 points are pretty much set in stone, the ones in offense, and then the ones in defense are the ones you can go changing around. Now right here, another gank. Look at the range, really good range. He doesn't hit the CC, but he does end up blocking Cassiopeia, and he just uses his ult to keep her CC'd and avoid death while Jace puts her down. He gets another kill, 4-0-1. And right here, he's going to go back and he buys a Sunfire Cape and a Kindle Gem. Now, in normal situations and in all the other games I spectated from him, he was actually going for the Juggernaut enchantment before anything else. But in this case, he's really so fed that he can afford to go for the Sunfire, get the Kindle Gem, and that means he's getting the CDR. While he's not getting Juggernaut, he's still getting the CDR and the Sunfire Cape. So he's very ahead right now. Right here is another engage, and look at the burst on Lee Sin. That's half of the HP he had, pretty much. And Zack is a team fighter, a champion that excels in team fights, and the more prolonged team fights are, the better it's going to be for him, because with the CDR, he's going to be able to spam more and more skills and have sustain. So you'll notice that in team fights, he goes in and out, tries to get back sustained through blobs, and goes back in with his E. And hitting that E is really important because it's a really high damage skill, and besides being a really high damage skill, the CC is really important for team fights. So, important stuff, skill order. Now, usually Zac maxes W to clear the jungle, and this was back with the old jungle. With the new jungle, I've been seeing a lot of E maxing, and this is again a bit about the auto attacks. You are more auto attack reliant for sustain and for clearing, so W isn't going to be the best option. Instead, you can rely on the damage, the base damage that is very high on your elastic slingshot, and use that to clear the jungle faster. Not only that, whenever you hit your elastic slingshot, you just clear time faster. You just clear faster because you can elastic slingshot from a bigger range, and at the same time, you're also maxing your ganking tool. So it's very useful to max your E first because you're maxing something that improves your clear and something that also improves your ganks. Then for the second skill, you can max. I've seen both iterations with maxing W and Q second, so maxing Unstable Matter or Stretching Strike. Saint has been going more for W second, but you can also go Q. And right here, another engage on the Cassiopeia. The Lee Sin comes and tries to help, but he got caught by the Soraka root, and they got pretty much wombo combo to death. And this is going to be the second turret for the red team. Now, as I was saying, you can max W or Q depending on what you need. Q is going to give you a better slow. Each rank goes up by 5% from 20 to 40% in max rank. And the base damage also goes up by 40 or 50. So it's a pretty good damage tool. The other option is going to be maxing your W. Now, maxing your W doesn't give you that much base damage increase, but the thing that it does increase is it increases the max percentage AP damage you do to champions. Now, this skill is obviously capped versus monsters, but versus champions it starts at, I believe, 4 or 5% max HP damage and goes up by 1%. So by maxing this second, and since it has such a low cooldown, especially when you're picking up blobs in team fights, you'll always be doing percentage maximum HP damage to enemy champions. Obviously, this is done. This is magic damage, not true damage, so it still can be reduced. But any skill with percentage maximum HP damage is super strong, and it's good against squishies. It's good against tanks. It's always good. So, yeah, right here they go for the second dragon, which is up. Pretty good, pretty easy to secure the dragons with Zac and go in for steals if it's needed. You can also do that cute trick where you fly over the dragon pit and try to smite it. So right here, they get the dragon and they get to kill on Lee Sin, and the game is pretty much now in their favor and almost over as well, as you can see by the timeline. Talking a bit about the core build, as you saw, Trailblazer, Ranger's Trailblazer is his item of choice, followed by the CDR boots and the Juggernaut enchantment to get the maximum CDR, close to the maximum, 35%. And then after that, he goes basically for tank items. Now, instead of telling you what he's going for in this case, I'm going to give you a general guideline so you can follow. Basically, if you want MR itemization, the offensive option, semi-offensive option, is going to be the Abyssal Scepter. It goes really well with your kit because you're all melee and low range, so it goes really well with the aura. And it goes super well if you're playing versus AP comps and versus magic damage comps, and you also have quite some magic damage on your team. Now, if you haven't noticed, there's a Gragas, there's a Soraka that does some damage, and there's also a Corki that does a lot of magic damage. So Abyssal Scepter is a really good purchase in this scenario. If you're playing against heavy AP comps and Abyssal is not quite going to cut it, the other options are obviously going to be Banshee's Veil, Spirit Visage, and Locket of the Iron Solari, depending on how the damage is. If it's AoE, you probably will need the Locket to help your teammates. If not, you can go for the other options. Now, just take into account that if you're playing against an AP composition, a magic damage composition, remember that you already have 35% CDR, so when you grab a Visage or a Locket of the Iron Solari, you'll be at basically 45%. So instead, you can try to go and remove those 5% CDR from the runes, get something else there on an alternative page, and then when you get that item, you'll be at 40% exactly. Now, for armor itemization, he went for Sunfire Cape, but that's mainly because he's ahead. The other options would be Randuin's Omen and Thornmail. And the offensive item, which he was also going to build, that's the ruby crystal he has, is the haunting guys that could be built into the Liandry's Torment. But I would only advise that if you're really ahead and you really want to do more damage. Now that's going to be it for this episode. The game already ended, as you can see. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's really the first time that I've done something like this, so I'm not very used to doing videos without a script. So if you'd like to give me some critique, feel free to do so. That's how I improve. And feel free to leave suggestions if you're very curious about a certain player playing a certain champion. Feel free to leave them in the comments and I will take it into account. That's going to be all for today for the first episode of Shakarez Spectates, and I'll see you guys in the Rift. Shakarez signing out.